Welcome back to the podcast. You are listening to Stuff No One Taught Us About Weight Loss. My name is Aaron. I'm here with Eloise, and today we're going to be talking about how to lose weight in 2022, 3 things to stop doing.
And when we were thinking about teaching how to lose weight in 2022, we were sort of going back and forth with different ideas, but then we thought, well, if we could pick 3 things that if you stop doing these 3 things, you will see results not just in 2022, but for years to come. These would be the 3.
Yeah, that's right. And the 3 that we're going to be talking about in today's episode, you may have heard before, but we're going to sort of put a bit of a different spin on it and explain why exactly those things are maybe hurting you in the long run, and then what to do instead. So how can you work around that? How can you stop doing that? And then what you can do instead. So the first one off the ranks, this is probably by far one of the biggest hurdles and probably one of the hardest things to do, is constantly looking for quick fixes or shortcuts to solving the problem. So especially as we roll into the new year, you're going to be bombarded with, lose weight in 4 weeks. There's a quick challenge coming up or a new diet that's being popularized or all of these things that promise really fast results in a short amount of time. And there's a reason for that, is because these things sell really quickly because everyone's so used to just consuming all of these really shiny looking objects, and they look really cool and they sound really cool, but in essence that's really hurting you in the long run.
And I think a big thing is most of us are in the habit of trying thing after thing, and we're in the habit of these quick challenges and promises and going from shiny object to shiny object. And so in and of itself, that is a habit that we need to break, is that searching for the next thing.
Yeah.
We need to come to terms with the fact that, look, losing weight, while it's not necessarily super easy, it is very simple.
Yeah.
It's very simple in that there are just a small number of very simple habits that if you just do those small things each day, you will see results. And the programs and the challenges that promise those really massive results really quickly, or they have some super secret supplement, or they have some crazy method that nobody else knows about, it's really unlikely that is going to be the answer to long-term weight loss for you.
Yeah. It's sort of the same principle because, they build the anticipation. It's the exact same thing as buying lottery tickets every week in the hopes that you're going to win it big.
They make it really exciting.
Yeah. The promise is there. The promise is, I'm going to win all this money if I buy this lottery ticket. And you might win a little bit every now and then, which sort of keeps you in the game, but it's really inconsistent. Whereas if you took the same amount of money that you would buy these tickets and you invested it, a small amount every single week into a compounding interest investment, eventually you're going to start to see a return on that, and it's going to just grow and grow and grow. And that's exactly the same thing with, as Eloise said before, the simple habits. If we do them often, we get a compounding return over and over again.
Exactly. So shortcuts and quick fixes are hurting you because they keep you stuck in the cycle where you're constantly in that state of building anticipation in your mind, thinking that this next thing or this next exciting promise is going to just solve all of your problems. And so we get into that mindset that if it's not big and grand and fancy, it's probably not going to work. And we keep searching for the next fancy thing. And unfortunately, the answer to results is not fancy. And so getting stuck in this cycle is really just hurting you, and it's sabotaging your weight loss, because as long as you're in that cycle, you're not going to see lasting results.
That's right. Because, all it's doing is just training that skill of looking for something new.
Instant gratification.
Yeah, we're training our brain to look for that next dopamine hit, that new shiny thing. Instead of doing what is proven to work, it just takes that consistent work. It's delaying the gratification a little bit for the long-term game.
Yeah. And so when we're thinking about what can you do instead of looking for quick fixes and shortcuts, it's all about thinking long term. So instead of how can I lose weight as quickly as possible in January, it's more like how can I lose the weight for the last time? in 5 years' time, is this method going to help me keep that weight off? Because so many of us just look at it with this really quick mentality where it's like lose as fast as possible, and we never consider, how am I going to maintain it? We just think, oh, I'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
But like, have you ever figured it out yet?
That's right. And it really comes down to, it's like a similar episode we did where we talked about building a system.
Yeah.
And it's much the same thing. Like if we go back to that money example of, instead of buying lottery tickets and spending the money in the hopes that it's going to give you all this return, if we then invested that money, we would create a system of, setting money aside and investing that money every single week. That's going to pay off. And if we can do the same thing with weight loss, and we can adapt habits that we can start to build over time, we're going to see a bigger return over a long period of time anyway.
Is investing in your health and investing in your body in the same way. It's a slower burn, slower result, but the result will stick around for 10 times longer.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day too, if the more consistent you get with implementing the habits, the faster you're going to see a return anyway. It's the same as anything. Like if you're investing money continuously, you're going to start to see that number build up. Whereas if we're doing it inconsistently, it's going to build up a little bit and then stop, and build up a little bit and stop.
Or even go backwards.
Yeah, or even go backwards. It's the same with our results with weight loss. If we're implementing this stuff over and over again consistently, we're going to see a pretty steady trend in our results. It's going to go the right way.
So in practice, if we have a weight loss goal and we're wanting to move towards the longer term approach rather than the quick fix shortcut approach, something you want to think about is, what is one really small habit that I can start with today? And how can I use the compounding effect of habits where I consistently improve over time, and eventually it starts to look like exponential growth? So when we're looking at that weight loss goal and we're breaking it down into, okay, what are my daily habits that are going to be required to reach that goal eventually? Something like, okay, I know that I need to reduce my portion sizes. How can I do that without absolutely hating my life and eating nothing?
Yeah.
One example, in order to eat a little bit less, avoid feeling bloated and physically uncomfortable after meals, is to just start reducing by like 1 or 2 bites at the end of your meal. So instead of just cleaning your plate, if that's what you normally do, you would leave just 1 or 2 bites behind. And that can be a really easy and simple habit to start implementing to start seeing tangible results. And then to progress this habit, what you can do is start leaving 3 bites behind. And, in a month's time, once you're really consistently leaving a few bites behind, maybe you then serve up a smaller portion and start leaving 2 bites behind again. But it gets you into that habit of slowly decreasing the amount of food in your meal instead of drastically reducing the amount of food in one hit.
So the second thing that we have to stop doing in order to continually get results is letting impatience get the better of you and quitting too soon on yourself. This is massive.
It is. Patience is absolutely everything when it comes to any long-term goals, really. And I have a really great example where patience and not quitting too soon comes into play. I had a friend who was applying to a lot of jobs. She was trying to find a new job. And she was getting a lot of either no's or people just not responding to her when she was walking around and handing out all of her resumes and emailing people and calling people and using connections and all of this stuff. She was working really hard and just not seeing a return. But eventually she was able to get an interview and then a yes from a company that she really was excited to work with. And if she had have said yes to the previous companies who she was just handing resumes to because she just wanted a quick job, she would have missed out on this opportunity. And so the idea behind this is like, eventually someone will say yes if you keep persisting. Eventually you will see results if you keep putting in the reps and doing the reps. In this case of applying to jobs, or in the case of weight loss, doing the reps of those small daily habits. If you quit on yourself because you feel like it's not happening fast enough, or you feel like maybe this is the wrong strategy and it won't work, all you're doing is quitting in advance. You're basically saying to yourself, well, if it's going to take a while, I may as well just quit and never actually get the result. Because you're taking that chance away from yourself.
Yeah, you're basically guaranteeing that you're not able to see a result from what you're doing.
Exactly.
And a lot of the times, the people who lose weight and are able to keep it off, they're not special in any way.
No.
They're just the people who have stuck at it consistently. They're the ones who don't quit. They might have everyone has bad days. Everyone has days that throw them off.
Yeah.
But these, people who seamlessly keep the weight off, they get back up faster and they just keep going.
Yeah, and they're people who see it as a long-term thing. This is for life. This is not, I'm just losing weight as fast as possible and then I go back to my old habits.
Yeah.
The reason that they're able to stay patient is usually because they make small changes and then they keep those changes and they keep building on top and stacking on top of those changes. So what you can do instead of making the mistake of being impatient and letting impatience get the best of you is obviously to be patient. But how do we do that? We start to form the identity of a person who is patient. And I was speaking to a client about this morning, actually, because she was saying to me that she's quit so many times before and she hasn't succeeded so many times in the past that she was just really struggling to see how this time would be different. And I was talking to her about the fact that you just have to decide that you're no longer the type of person who quits. And this is exactly what I implemented in my own life, because in the past I was a major quitter, really when it came to anything. If I wasn't seeing results as fast as I thought that they should be coming, I would get very discouraged and I would usually quit and look for something new. I'd look for the next diet or the next exercise program that was going to give me better results. But eventually I learned after doing that so many times that that's not how it works. The new programs were never any better. They were just new and different. That was the only thing. And so I started writing in my journal every single day, I don't quit. I'm not the type of person who quits. I'm the type of person who keeps going. And I drilled that new identity into myself. And since I've been doing that, I have not quit.
Yeah.
I just know now, I'm so confident in the fact that I'm just going to keep going and doing the reps every day, even on the days when it feels difficult, even on the days when it sucks. I do something. It's not perfect every day, but I do something because I'm not quitting, and then I just keep getting back on every moment.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is you've got to start to create the identity within yourself of someone who is going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And even in doing that, you can just try to eradicate the notion of there's a way out of this. So if you had to keep doing this, how are you going to make it work?
Yeah.
I start thinking of like, all right, this is something I have to do. I've got to find a way to become the person who makes this work. I'm going to figure out how I can do this problem, or how I can solve this problem in a way that feels good to me and that I can keep going with over and over again, rather than just pull the pin and we go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings us on to the third one, which is a really interesting one, because Eloise definitely suffers from this one, and we all do really, and it's perfectionism. Thinking that you have to be perfect, otherwise you shouldn't bother trying.
Yeah.
This is another one that is a massive one.
I do struggle with this a lot, and it's something I've worked on a lot. It's also, quite interestingly, something that I speak to with clients about a lot, because I always notice when it's coming up, because I'm like, yep, I've done that.
Yeah.
I think that same way, so I know what you're thinking. And in weight loss, perfectionism usually looks like, oh, I've messed up one day, or I've messed up one meal. Oh, I may as well just take the whole week off and start again on Monday.
Yeah, it's a pretty again, it's almost like a short-term thinking of like, well, if it's not perfect and as soon as it goes wrong, that's it, I'm letting myself off the hook. I might as well just not try because it's not perfect.
Yeah.
Or another way that this shows up is, deciding to not take a positive action because you ate one thing off your plan. Or you did one small thing wrong, so therefore it's like, well, everything beyond this point is just going to be free will and I'm just going to do like whatever and let myself off the hook.
Yeah. And usually this comes from the idea that we think that there should be like this rule book that we follow perfectly. And even in our program is designed so that it works with you and so that it's very flexible and you can adjust things as you need. And yet people will still come in and treat it like a list of rules.
Yeah.
But nothing we ever say on any of these podcasts, in any of our social media, in any of our programs is ever a strict rule. It's always a suggestion. It's always a guideline. It's always a way that's worked for many people, but that doesn't mean that that's a strict rule that you need to adhere to 100% of the time. Otherwise, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. You got to think about it like, as Eloise said before, they're more like guidelines. And I think for a lot of people, needing rules comes from a lack of self-trust in this particular area.
Yeah.
So if you're not confident in yourself, you're going to look for really strict rules to sort of almost shuttle you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So imagine like if you're going bowling, this would be like having the bumpers up. So the ball is guaranteed to get and hit some of the pins.
Yeah.
Whereas if we come at it with, the bumpers are down, the ball could go into the gutter. And a lot of people are scared of that happening. And so they want all these strict rules so that they can't make a mistake and they almost can't like do it wrong.
Yeah. They forget that they get to bowl again.
Well, exactly.
You get a second shot. And
You get a second shot.
The second shot is the next 5 minutes. You can make the next best choice.
That's right. And that's how you learn is you make a mistake and you go, well, all right, it went into the gutter, so I'm not going to bowl it like that again. I might try and change it just a little bit. And it's exactly the same with the weight loss side of things as well. Like if we're making a mistake, like say, we ate off plan or we didn't plan that day ahead, and then we look at, all right, well, how did that day pan out then?
Yeah. Why did it happen?
Exactly. And then tomorrow I'll just get back on the horse and I'll go, all right, well, I did this yesterday and I learned from it. Now I can not repeat that same mistake.
Exactly right.
We start to build that self-trust back again, and that's what really allows us to be in the driver's seat of our own results.
Yeah. There's really just no room for perfectionism in weight loss. And I mean, I've really learnt this the hard way, but now that I've learnt it, I'm pretty confident that the only way to lose weight and then keep it off is to learn how to lose weight on your worst day.
Yeah.
How to get results and keep going when life is absolutely crazy, a train wreck, shit is hitting the fan from all angles, and you keep going. You know how to keep going in those moments. That is the only way. And that is really the bottom line of everything that we do is how can you still get results when things aren't perfect?
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think there's a really, really good story with this about how doing things imperfect, taking imperfect action, just doing it over and over and over again actually gives you a better result. So there was this story of an art class, and the head of the art class, the teacher said to the students, he broke them into 2 teams. And he said, one team, you've got to make 1 clay pot. It's got to be perfect. In a month's time, you've got to produce 1 pot. He said to the other group, you've got to make as many pots as you possibly can in a month. So they both went away and they both started working, and the first team were trying to come up with all these ideas about how it could be perfect because they get 1 chance. The other team just got straight into it and they were just making pot after pot after pot after pot. At the end of the month, the teacher then took the best pots from each group. So group 1 only had 1. Group 2 by this stage had made like 10,000 pots because they just made so many of them that team could just churn them out. And interestingly enough, team 2, who made the most number of pots, they actually won because theirs was immaculate. They had changed their design so many times through learning, through doing, that they came out with the better results at the end.
They did the reps. So when we're thinking about what you can do instead of trying to aim for perfect, is thinking about how do the people who are successful get results? Do they do that by being perfect 100% of the time? The answer is definitely no. And the people who do see success are the people who are the best at adjusting the plan when they need to. And the way that we usually talk about this is the dial system. And I think we've mentioned this on the podcast before.
Yeah.
So when life is going well, it's super easy, it's calm, it's stress-free, you can turn the dial up and you can do more. You can work out more. You can dial in your eating a little bit more. You can do your journaling all the time. You can do extra even when the dial's up at 10. But then on the days where it's really stressful, you feel like crap, you're so busy, your whole family's busy, everything is happening, and you just hardly even have time to eat a meal. On those days, you can turn the dial down. And when you turn the dial down, it means that you adjust for what you can do on the day. What's doable for you? How can I make this easy on myself? What is the minimum thing that I can do that's still moving me forward, but is really not that much? So you might snack on an apple. You might just write down your gratitude in your journal and not fill out the rest. You might just go for a 5-minute walk, or even if you can't go outside, you could just do 5 minutes of stretching. Those little things are going to move you forward. They're not going to give you overnight results, but that's not the point. The point is, are you the type of person who keeps doing your habits on your worst days, or are you the type of person who quits and says it's too hard? That's the difference. One of my favorite examples of being resilient and really working this into your day is Gretchen Rubin in her book Better Than Before, where she talks about breaking your day into 4 quarters. So we've got morning, midday, afternoon, and evening. And so if you make a mistake, instead of just going, well, this is all ruined now, I have to completely quit, it's like, no, the day's 4 quarters, you can get back on track in the next quarter. Right? Even if we're thinking about like a football game, the team who's losing in the first quarter, do they just give up and go home? They keep playing the rest of the game because the day, like, they still have a chance to come back. So think about that when you're going through your day as well. Like, she says, fail small, not big, right? Sure, you made a mistake. Cool. But get back on track. Make the next best choice.
And I think that's the name of the game, really, is how quickly you can just get back up, dust yourself off, and just what's the next best thing I can do.
I almost believe that if there was one thing that differentiated the people who are successful in weight loss and are able to lose it and then keep it off, and the people who aren't, is this one thing, that resilience.
100%.
That would be it.
100%. It's the people who look for, how can I do this despite what's going on?
Exactly.
Instead of just, fall down and stay down. So guys, that's it for this episode. We hope that you got some good takeaways from this and you try to avoid making even just one of these mistakes. If you're going into 2022 and you can resonate with one of these that we've spoken about, try to make that your goal, is to not do that. So if it's perfectionism, you're thinking, instead of how can I be perfect, it's just how can I get back up and be as resilient as possible, as quickly as possible. And if it's looking for shiny objects, again, thinking about, like, if this was a long-term commitment, how am I going to make this work? Think about that money example. Instead of being the person who's buying lottery tickets after, one after the next, how can I invest this money instead? I'm going to almost guarantee that I'm going to get a return if I'm investing it, as opposed to just taking a chance and buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
So once again, thanks so much for listening or watching, however you're consuming this. And we will both see you in the next episode.